Hey everyone, welcome back to the All Music Matters Net podcast. I'm your host, Brian. Join me today. I welcome two very special guests. We got Turner and we got Adam from the band Black Box Recovery. How y'all doing today, brothers?
Doing all right.
Doing well. How are you?
Not too bad. And I guess where y'all hailing from, actually?
Portland, Maine. The better
Maine.
of the two Portlands.
Whoa.
And it's a very contentious thing, apparently.
I was going to say, is Adam from Portland, Oregon?
No, born and raised Portland, Maine, but I don't want to offend anyone.
That's a good thing. Actually, I have a friend actually out of Oregon. I don't know how close he is to Portland, though, so that's best not to offend anybody. So
Right. Good rule of thumb.
that's for sure, too. How you guys been recently? What's new?
So we just finished up recording all the songs from our first EP that we'll be releasing in the near future. We still got a little bit of mixing, mastering, getting artwork and all that stuff, but all the recording we finished last weekend. So we've been working on it for a while now.
Yeah, like 3 years-ish.
So it's exciting to have that process almost finished.
All right, that's pretty cool. And actually, a couple songs he sent over to me for my McGrip show, Fever Dreams and Rose Colored, or was it Rose Colored Glasses?
You got it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I wanted to make sure, yeah. Actually, yeah, were those going to be on the new EP?
Yeah.
Yeah, both of those. Yep. Should be tracks 3 and 5, respectively.
All right, sounds good. You get to elaborate more on your music here in just a little bit here. So, Turner and Adam, I want to welcome you both to my podcast. And the way it's going to work is, it's going to ask you guys some questions. Let's get to know you more both as the musicians, but also as the individuals as well, too. So, you all ready?
Perfectly ready. Thanks for having us.
No worries. And I guess, first off, who's the oldest out of the two right here?
Ooh, I don't know. I just had a birthday on May 1st. Got my Larry Bird year, 33 over here.
So my birthday's coming up on the 16th. I'll be 32. So I guess Adam's got me beat by just a little bit.
Old man.
You can go first then. And actually, May the 4th be with you, because we're doing this May 4th, so that's all good. All right. So Adam, for the first question right here, I guess, tell us a little about yourself. What's your backstory and how did you become a musician?
Backstory. Born and raised in Maine. Did the typical stuff. Around middle school age, buddy of mine, he's kind of the ringleader. He's like, hey, you're going to play bass in a band we're putting together. And I was like, okay, let me see what I can do. Uncle next door had a duplex. He didn't have a bass, but he had a Squire guitar. So I grabbed that and I started going to practices and kind of never looked back. Haven't played with those gentlemen for a decade and a half, but it got me off and running. Kind of fell in love with it.
Did you do anything for school? Any sort of talent shows or playing a band or orchestra?
Yeah. We had a band. We went by a name called Hitting on Men, and we changed it when we started getting some actual gigs. Changed it to Introducing with the ellipsis. So it was like ha, introducing. But all jokes aside, we did do some cool stuff. The typical talent shows or like Battle of the Bands, but throughout the school, once people found out you play, they kind of wanted to use your skills. So like homecoming float, we played like halftime for football and like in between plays. And then at our graduation, we played the class song, covered Don't Stop Believin' by Journey. So it was pretty surreal having the whole class sing along to that. It was a good time. But yeah, so there's probably more I'm not thinking of. Nothing super amazing, but some fun stuff.
You might think of it along the way here too, but I was going to say that band name Hitting on Man probably didn't age too well at this point. So
No, we they had this thing locally called the Rock Off, and they kind of judge you on the entirety of what encompasses a band. So like down to the band name, to the arc, if you had a banner, song name, song lyrics, actual content. So we kind of made the executive decision to be a little more PC.
I was going to say maybe PG rated. So
Yeah. Or you could have flipped the tables on them, like, what's wrong with me hitting on men? You got a problem with that? But Yeah, probably
each
the
their
best
own.
decision there, I think.
I would say actually, Turner, were you part of Adam's group as well?
No, we only met each other. It's been, I think, 2018. I saw a bassist wanted poster they put up at Guitar Center. So we didn't go to the same high school or any of that. So we've only known ourselves for 6 years now. Still quite a while.
I was gonna say, were you guys different high schools? Were you the rivalry sort of schools, for instance?
Yeah, where'd you go?
North Yarmouth Academy.
Not typically rivals. I think we were in the same like division or like district, so we would have played. But I myself didn't play any organized sports. I don't know if you did.
Yeah, I did. I played lacrosse and ran cross country.
Yep, definitely can see the cross country sort of style in them too, so I can see why. All right. I guess Turner, what's your story?
I guess so. My story, I guess my musical journey started out when my parents have a piano at home, and as like a little kid, I'd like just play around on it, and they eventually, I guess, just got annoyed by my attempts to make music, and so decided to start getting me piano lessons so I could learn how to actually play it. And so that was my first instrument. I played piano for a number of years. And when I got into like high school, started playing the guitar because that was the cool instrument to play. I also picked up the trombone too. I'd want to play in my school's jazz band, but they already had a guitarist and a pianist, and so the music teacher is like, "Well, if you want to be in the jazz band, there's a old trombone in that locker over there. Learn how to play it, and you can be in the band." So that's what I did. And I guess that's kind of what got me interested in playing bass eventually. I played guitar before, and the trombone is arguably a bass instrument, at least if you don't have any tubas in the ensemble. So kind of melding them together is what got me interested in bass playing.
That's a pretty cool story. And I guess who introduced you guys to music? Were you guys more into classic rock back in the day?
Yeah, I'd say so. Growing up, my it's strange. My parents don't like listen to a lot of music at home, but the car, it was always cranked, and my mom would bring me to a lot of concerts. So at a very young age, I was seeing things like Cher, Barry Manilow, and then some cooler stuff like Def Leppard. So I definitely got into the dad rock through her taste. She was alive and thriving in the 80s, so that's kind of her shtick.
Definitely worked on the social skills, so I mean that's pretty smart actually when you think about it too. So I can see why. I guess Turner.
My I guess introduction to music, aside from that whole piano story, is my dad had a lot of like old metal records, Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, all those bands. So I started listening to those, and that's kind of what got me into like, metal, hard rock music in general. And of course, I was also like in middle school and high school in the mid 2000s. So all of the, guess you'd say, emo music, so stuff like AFI and Avenged Sevenfold, My Chemical Romance are all pretty popular amongst teenagers at that point. So, I was listening to some of the more contemporary metal or metal-ish music a lot. Kind of got into more like death metal too, with the big Cannibal Corpse fan, and Alex Webster's, probably my favorite bassist. A lot of influence from him.
The finger picking maestro, that's what I want to call Alex
Yeah.
Webster. Yeah, that dude's insane to be honest too. I think one song in particular, I'm pretty sure there's good number ones, but I know Strangulation Chair, I think that was one he had a crazy bass line on too. So you can see why. And we'll get to that because I'm pretty sure he's an influence as well. But I guess let's first jump into the band a little bit here too. So I guess who wants to give the history about Black Box Recovery? Go ahead.
original founding member here. So I've been in it since the beginning. We had a name before. We were known as Lysis. A couple of the gentlemen obviously aren't here. We're a 5-piece, but I guess you'd call him the lead guitarist. We're both kind of noodling. But his name's Nate Atienza. He's a near and dear friend of mine since about 5th grade. That band I mentioned before introducing, he was in the second iteration of it. So it was in high school when it went into the college phase. Instead of atrophy, we just did a little bit of a lineup change. So our lead guitarist hopped on drums. He came in on lead. And eventually it did kind of atrophy. The other 2 members went away to college. So it was just Nate and I. That's why we were throwing up flyers, trying to find people, just scrape anybody we could together. From there, we found our lead vocalist, I guess, through a flyer on a college campus, USM, go Huskies. So it was the 3 of us for ever. We'd had an infinite, seemingly, rotation of a roster. I think at this point, including Turner and our current drummer, Blaine, we've had about 15 members. So it's a bit of a struggle to find someone who not only is proficient at their instrument, but is professional enough to meet up and kind of actually make it happen, and then also kind of has a shared vision. So eventually, after the 15 attempts, we did lock down Turner and Blaine, and kind of been playing ever since.
And just for the audience, can you list what instruments and role you guys play in the group, as well as the ones who are currently not here?
Right. So Adam Kinney, technically rhythm guitar and backing vocals. Yeah, Turner Kelsey, bass guitar, backing vocals. Gentlemen that aren't here, we have our vocalist, Dylan Burrows. Like I said, Nate Atienza on the other guitar. And then we have Blaine Sawyer on drums.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I guess, where did the name Black Box Recovery come from?
So it's actually in our earlier years. He's technically my cousin, but he's more like a brother, just the way we grew up. We kind of had him roped in, and we were all just spitballing names, and it was one that he kind of wrote down on the whiteboard when we weren't looking, and we were reading through them and found that one. And it wasn't like a eureka, but it was kind of like, that one doesn't suck too bad, right? So we kind of went with it, and the more we told people the name and they're like, oh, that's a cool name, that's like different, got some more confidence behind it. I feel like we're kind of starting to own it now instead of just have a name.
Well, we know we're not trying to get it from Elon Musk's satellites, that's for sure, too. So that's all cool. So I guess in terms of influences, I guess, Turner, here, you can go first. I guess, who influenced you in bass? And I guess, do you still do a little guitar with the group?
Not much. I'll sometimes play around a little bit on my own, but as far as the time we spend together as a group, it's, mostly fairly goal directed, working on getting ready for a show, getting ready to record things, writing new music. So, since I just played bass in the band, that's kind of my focus at the moment.
Well, you do help with writing and guitar.
Yeah, I guess I don't actually, play the guitar, but I know how to communicate with guitarists, I suppose. So, and
he's a guitar whisperer, if we want to call that too.
He's a maestro when it comes to the theory.
That's for sure.
Yeah, I was actually a high school music teacher for a couple years, so I went to college for music, so I'm kind of a music nerd. But influences. So I'd mentioned Alex Webster. Again, as you said, he has, excellent finger style technique, which definitely helps your sound kind of stand out from the crowd, because I don't think there's some bassists who are like, it's wrong to play with a pick. I don't really care about that, but I think it's just kind of gives it a different sound. I actually find it easier to play finger style. I guess I'm the minority on that, but but the fact that he kind of is able to play really like technical and crisp sounding bass lines, with finger style playing. It's definitely gives the band a interesting sound compared to a lot of the band Cannibal Corpse, a very interesting sound compared to a lot of other death metal bands where you can, because with them you can kind of actually pick out the bass in the mix, since that's different tonal quality from the guitar when you play a finger style. And you'll also do like some interesting like harmonized lines with the guitarist too, in addition to just sometimes playing roots and doubling rhythm guitar like bassists often do. He throws in a lot of like harmonies, counter melodies that I think make it pretty interesting. And I guess, oddly, I think my next biggest influence is a bassist named Charles Mingus, who was a jazz player, played the upright bass. I think it's like 50s, 60s, or kind of his heyday, I suppose. But I was introduced to his music from playing jazz band in high school. A lot of the songs we played in that band were written and composed by Charles Mingus, and it was my favorite jazz composer back in high school. So his technique as a bassist also influenced me a lot. And arguably, if you listen to his playing, he kind of is a very metal-ish player, even though it's like jazz music. He has a lot of fast, technical, really rhythmic bass lines that I think arguably may have had some influence on the genre of metal, albeit that came later than jazz, but it was probably my other big influence too.
That's pretty cool. He's secretly a metalhead at heart too. So anyway. Plus, I think you also mentioned earlier about being a teacher as well too. So I think like that explains a lot. Anyway. And Adam, I guess, who would you consider has been your influences?
Young age, that same ringleader that told me to pick up an instrument because he said so. He got me into the Offspring. So I was a huge punk kid for many, many years, picking up, alternative rock singles on the radio that are kind of catchy and getting my feet wet with what's out there and what's popular and what's been done. And actually, he mentioned them earlier, but it wasn't until Avenged Sevenfold and like concurrently semi-local band in our area. They're out of Worcester, Mass. It's a band called 4 Years Strong. They're very major in the mood, but have some more metal kind of technique, I guess you'd say. So once I heard those two bands and found out, what some blast beats and double kick can do, I kind of been an addict. So I got into the heavier music, and college floats around and things are really formulaic, kind of stale. So I actually found Coheed and Cambria, and they're more of like the prog side. So I found their record, not their first one, it was Good Apollo on Burning Star 4, Volume 1, From Fear Through the Eyes of Madness. And that didn't leave my CD player for an embarrassingly long amount of time. So I fell in love with them. And then whenever people kind of ask me this question, I just had like a top 5 band. So like The Offspring, Coheed and Cambria, back to the punk. I'm a big Rise Against and Thrice fan. And I love Killswitch Engage as well. So I would say,
Killswitch seems more like I think Killswitch looks more like a metal, maybe alternative metal if we wanted to call it that too. So that's what were you gonna say?
Metalcore, yeah.
Something like that, yeah. Or I'm not too sure how they describe the genres these days though. It's just metal, baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess speaking of which, I guess how would you describe your genre of music too? Do you guys try to blend an alternative style with some metal here and there?
I think it might sound pretentious, but like the technical genre, if we had to like get specific for labeling us, would be post-progressive, melodic, hardcore. But I guess it'd be more like punk and metal with focus on melodies.
Yeah, because like kind of a lot of some of our official pages would say like post-hardcore, and that would be bands like Thursday. I know they're a huge influence on our vocalist. I'd never listened to them until I met these guys, but I'm a big fan of that. Touche Amore. There's another one. What's that other? Blanking now. There's a similar.
La Dispute.
That's the other one. Defeater, another one.
Mm-hmm.
We actually, the engineer's been recording our album, used to play guitar in Defeaters, Jay Moss. So we definitely draw some influence from that post-hardcore scene, but we probably do, our style is like a little more aggressive. There's like a little more metal and kind of regular hardcore punk thrown in as well. So I guess you could say it's some blend of metal and hardcore, I guess. Might be how I'd describe it.
Something like that too. That was some killer music when I was putting the whole video together for my group show too. So, you guys got some music there. You guys are promising. So,
hey, thanks.
That's all good. And I guess before we jump into COVID here, Turner, do you play with a pick or do you alternate between your fingers and picks?
So I mostly play finger style. The pick playing, we play some cover songs because, we make more money doing that. We had a great show recently at a event called Emo Night at a local venue here in Portland. That went over really well. And so, to make some of the songs sound more faithful to the originals, I play with a pick on some of those. But for our music, I've kind of just stuck with finger style playing, again, just 'cause it feels more natural to me. So I usually only would play with a pick if I have some compelling reason to, like, making it sound like the original artist if we're doing a cover.
I was trying to hold it in because as soon as you said Emo Night, they actually name a festival or a show like that too. So it's like, man.
Yeah, I guess there's a thing, a number of cities have them. It's not like there's no Emo Night, National Emo Night Council, but I figure because, millennials are getting older and getting nostalgic for our high school days, they tend to be very well attended events in a lot of major cities that have similar ones.
That's pretty cool. Actually, that would be nice because I'm actually from Pittsburgh, and I don't know if they actually do something like that too. So I'll have to maybe look around and see, because that would be nice to see. Because I just remember listening to Chemical Romance a good number of times. I don't know if you would count Story of the Year as emo. I don't really think so.
I would definitely consider them emo.
Well, at least the event we played at, there's a good variety. They aren't too strict about what constitutes emo. Like, we played a Kill Switch Engage song. Some bands played Limp Bizkit songs, which that's definitely not emo, but still went over well with the audience, and that's what really matters.
I'd say you're in for a good night when they're covering a Limp Bizkit song and it starts off, "It's just one of them days."
Yeah, that's the one.
It's just one of those days. Right. Something like that too. Actually, the way I always like doing it too is like, it's just one of them days. But I think it's like the correct way you pronounce it is one of those days. So, well, he's a funny guy, Limp Bizkit too. Even though I think he always had some bad blood. Actually, I think I remember Zach Wilde just got up. I think he was doing a show and he just like started cussing at Limp Bizkit and everything too, because I guess he said something about it. I know there was also something with Slipknot way back in the day. So
I think you're right. Yeah, Fred Durst is an interesting guy. For how controversial he has been, he's been really relevant.
Somehow. Well, I think I forget if there was a riot. I don't know if it was because he started or maybe just said something. I'm not too sure. So.
Oh yeah, so there's documentary Trainwreck about some music festival that went very badly, and he was partly responsible for that.
Well, I could say he probably influenced them with the song Break Stuff, even though I don't think it's true, but right. I do have other questions about
literally.
Sorry. I was going to say, I do have other questions about Portland, Maine in just a second here, but it kind of ties in with COVID right here. So let's start with this. So Adam, I guess, how bad did COVID impact you, your family, and music-wise?
Not too significantly. My folks were very grounded, didn't kind of buy into the fear-mongering of the media. So we kind of went about business as usual. You adhere to the recommendations, I suppose, like masking up and social distancing and not necessarily getting bigger groups of people together. Me personally, I worked straight through it. I was working in the emergency department of an animal hospital while that was going on. And musically, I don't think too much changed. We may have missed like a month or two, and then I think we kind of jumped right back into it.
That's good. I guess, Turner?
Oh, so funny you should ask, because at the time, my day job, or I guess you should say a night job, was working as a respiratory therapist. And one of our responsibilities is to run mechanical ventilators and other life support equipment. So I was pretty much like the front line of COVID. So I kind of, saw the worst of it, but got through it. And playing music is very therapeutic and kind of helping me move on from that experience a little bit. But yeah, so I wasn't at the time. I kind of separated from the band initially because of going to respiratory therapy school, and then of course I graduated in 2020, and so then went to Maine Medical Center to work for a while there. That kept me really busy, not too busy to have music in my life, unfortunately. But as things started slowing down a little bit, I was like, I should start, trying to do music again. I'm looking through, posting, I think on Craigslist or something, and I see that Black Box Recovery is once again looking for a bassist. I'm like, oh, cool. I liked those guys. To see if they'll let me back in the band, and it's been going great since then.
It was like hint, and then it was like all that stuff. Yeah, I can see. Actually, you're kind of walking in the same path Tom Araya actually went through too, because he was a respiratory therapist before he joined Slayer.
That's how I heard of the profession, actually. There's a lot, and I know I just found out I'm now teaching respiratory therapy, kind of put my music teaching and respiratory therapist stuff together. And one of my students is a big punk and metal fan, and I just found out he plays drums in a pretty popular local band. It's Scotty Saints and the True Believers from Portland, I believe. They might have some members from Mass too, but New England area. And so there are a lot of musicians who work in healthcare because it's a very flexible schedule. Like you can work night shifts if you want, which kind of works better if you're going to be going out and playing shows late on your nights off. It can make a decent amount of money because, music when you're in the early stages doesn't generate a ton of income, so you can be financially stable. And, my coworkers were always willing to swap shifts if I had a show or something. So it's, a pretty flexible schedule in healthcare. So I actually know a lot of musicians who do it as a day or night job, depending.
I was going to say, did you have to save some funds to pay for the group as well? Because I think that's what Tom and Raya actually had to do. I think he had to use some of his funds from his respiratory therapist job, and he had to help with the group as well there too. So
exactly, and it worked out for him, and it seems to be working out here as well. So
I guess so. And I guess, did you guys have any brushes with COVID? Were you both okay?
I did get it. As far as I know, I'm okay. I don't know, maybe it did a little brain damage to me, but still working well enough.
Yeah, for me, I feel like I've had it a number of times, but no lasting effects. I can still smell and I can still taste my food, so it's kind of like another cold for me.
I'm still standing here, so
nice.
That's for sure. That's all good. So it's good to see you guys are doing well there too. So good to have you along for the ride here. And I was going to jump in about Portland too. So I guess, how bad did COVID impact Portland? Did it impact the music scene pretty bad?
Terribly.
Pretty much non-existent.
Yeah, it decimated the live scene of any kind, any genre. And in Maine, if you're not in the greater Portland area, there's not much going on till you go 2 hours north to up at Bangor. So it completely destroyed the live scene, which was a complete bummer.
Yeah, although we did a show at Gino's Rock Club, probably the most popular like hard rock venue here.
Bar, yeah.
Pretty much like as soon as all the restrictions were lifted and case counts got low enough, we like went right out and played a show there, and it's pretty awesome. I think packed house, everyone having a good time. It was kind of a relief. I was like, I hope live music isn't like screwed over for years to come, but it's bounced back very fast, so it's been great.
People definitely were eager to get back to live music after being celibate from it for a year or two. The city as a whole, it did go through some changes. Since our population's a lot lower here than some neighboring states, a lot of people were buying up property and moving up here because it was there's more space to breathe and a little
Literally. The virus can't get me if I go to the state with the lowest population density, which is kind of true. It hit us much later than the rest of the country, but still got here eventually.
Some other changes you might have seen that were kind of interesting. I think a statistic I heard, don't quote me on it, but Portland has it has the most restaurants per capita in the nation.
Yeah, I've heard breweries, but both sound plausible.
So there's a lot of food and drink, and another way that people were kind of chomping at the bit, no pun intended, to get back out to eating. I think they were calling it like al fresco. A lot of restaurants set up like dining situations outside. So like ventilation would be a little more natural. There'd be a little more space. And some of that's actually stuck. One street, I think they kind of block off periodically to make pedestrian traffic only. So then restaurants will take that opportunity to kind of scarf up that real estate. But other than that, it was probably similar to a lot of other places. I didn't travel much for obvious reasons to kind of see how other places were being impacted. But talking to friends who like live in New York City and things, it seems like there's a lot more of like a lockdown situation there. But Portland wasn't too bad of a place to ride it out.
Everybody else was just kind of walking the precipice of a zombie apocalypse. We wanted to call it that too. So
yeah, the mood was right. Yeah.
Something like that. Actually, I think you guys are the farthest north I've interviewed so far, because I've interviewed good people out of Toronto and some out of Niagara Falls and some out of New York City. So I think you guys are the farthest north so far. So I'm not too sure.
I have to check some of those longitudinal lines, but I think we may actually be further north than either of those places. But I have to look at a map to see for sure.
I'll take your word for it. Geography is my worst subject.
Yeah, I'd love to see what happens too. But actually, Portland's more known for the fishing, right? And lobster.
Lobster's real big. Not necessarily to the natives, but when tourists come up, that's what they're looking for.
Yeah. Well, my grandfather was a lobsterman, and my dad was for a period of time before he, took a desk job. So I do love lobster myself, but, I rarely eat it out because they overcharge substantially.
You know me. Actually, it's like a $40 thing just to get a steak and a lobster tail on top of it too. So
yeah,
40 or 50, give or take, however much they charge. So, and I guess how bad was lockdown for Maine wise too? Were they pretty strict about wearing masks and this and that?
I'd say so. I mean, there weren't like police going around be like, you gotta, but like the clerks or anybody would ask you to leave the store if you didn't have your mask. Our grocery stores had like arrows taped on the floor to direct like which way foot traffic should go down aisles.
They still do. Still haven't taken them off in many places.
So, again, not like many reference points to compare it to, but it was definitely a big change compared to what we were used to.
That's for sure, too. All right. So it's all bright days are ahead. So we'll see what happens. All right. For the next question right here, I guess, Adam, I guess what sort of gear do you use for music production, both in a studio and live?
Live. I'm kind of, I guess, maybe very frugal, but I'm playing in Ibanez Diamond Series with a Floyd Rose that I bought from our other guitarist 15, 16 years ago. Hardware on it's rusted, but she's got a couple humbuckers and a single coil up towards the head of the neck. Still, that's my little workhorse. Had to solder some wires back together in the back. As far as equipment, back in that an original band, I got it was a solid state, and it came with a cab. It was a Line 6. So I keep the cab, but since then I've upgraded to a Marshall 200 watt, which I'm in love with. And then I really just use a channel select. I don't do anything too shoegazy or involved. And then recording, kind of like demos or anything through the years, we've used Ableton. If you're familiar with that software. But a lot of DIY stuff, it's more, Turner's kind of more the spearhead on that. So if we're not actually in the studio working with Jay or another guy, we've done some songs you may hear, Zach Primrose out of, I think, Bradford, Vermont. I couldn't tell you what either of those use for software, but
I think Primrose used Pro Tools, and what did Jay? He mentioned it. Cubase, I think, was the name of the software Jay was using.
I'm not sure, but he's got some interesting stuff. He has his own, I don't know what you'd call it. I access it through a URL, so it's like a website, but it's kind of like an AI mastering. So he'll like put your music that he does the mixing. You can watch him do it, and we have back and forth conversations about tweaking. But then he'll upload it in there, and he swears by it.
His day job is some like computer programming tech stuff. So he kind of mixed his musical interests in that into AI mastering tools, put all the human mastering people out of business. But it sounds pretty good and it's convenient. So
I guess so. We'll get to just a bit here too, but I guess Turner, what kind of gear do you got?
So my bass is a Spectre Legend 5-string bass, which coincidentally it's almost identical to the model Alex Webster plays. I did not intend that. It was literally the only 5-string in the store when I went to go upgrade to a 5-string. So I just bought that one, and I love it. It sounds great. And I have a Dark Glass Alpha Omega preamp, along with I gather every other bassist in the metal genre, which also is something Alex Webster uses coincidentally. I just bought that pedal off our drummer because, he plays a little bit of bass too, but with his focus being drumming, he was like, maybe I'll just sell this pedal to you. And same with my amp is also from my drummer, Blaine. I think his dad is a bassist too. So he has like a ton of bass gear that he's either sold or loaned to me. At the moment, the amp I'm using, it's a Working Pro is the brand name for it. So usually for like live shows, I'll set that up. And the preamp pedal also has like a direct output you can put to the PA system of whatever venue. So I'll usually run both of those so I can kind of control the on-stage sound through the amp, and the a sound guy can take the direct signal and do what he wants with that.
That's pretty cool. Actually, he's trying not to, but he's slowly turning into Alex Webster at this point, especially when he's... This is way beyond a coincidence here, buddy. I mean,
right?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't written any. I think he writes some of the lyrics for the band, and I appreciate controversial art, but I'm not going to submit any lyrics of that nature. I don't think Dylan would want to sing those.
I mean, you just got to throw a B-rated horror movie together and just put in the lyrics. I mean, that's pretty much all you got to do. So I guess in terms of the songs too, do you guys still work in the studio? I know you mentioned about two guys earlier here too. So when you create your music, for instance, do you do it in your own studio and then mix and master in a professional one, or how's it all work out?
So the long story of it is I'll have an idea, meet up with these guys. They kind of write all their own parts. So I enjoy watching an idea I have kind of grow once other people get their hands on it. We'll run it a bunch, and we might do some crude demos, maybe with like a phone or like a separate piece of hardware. But we don't really have our own studio. We tried some DIY, but we kind of put more of our time into gigging and writing, and then we did feel that we kind of get what you pay for. So we've kind of gone more so to the actual studio, but maybe a little labor intensive, but a lot of the ideas are up in our heads. So it's kind of on the individuals to remember. We don't necessarily have staff music or tablature. So it's just rote practice and driving it in. And once you get familiar enough to listen to it while you're playing, instead of focusing on not messing up, you start to make sure instruments aren't clashing, making sure everyone's kind of doing what they can to synchronize, to tighten up transitions and things like that.
Sometimes we'll do, sectionals, as we call them in classical music. Like if, for example, our drummer Blaine can't make it to practice, we'll just have like a guitar players and myself, our string section, kind of play in one of our apartments here in Portland, since you can turn the volume down enough on our instruments not to piss off the neighbors, and we can work out a lot of the harmonic interplay between our instruments in that setting. If there's any sour notes or chords, that you can pick them out a little easier without drums and vocals. So we'll kind of do a lot of refinement in smaller groups than the whole band.
I see how it works. And I guess, do you sometimes normally write lyrics first and then put the music together, or do you do music first and then throw the lyrics on top?
The latter. Definitely music first. I wouldn't consider myself a poet, but could write lyrics, but I leave it to Burroughs. He's a bit more of a visionary of the band, and he's someone who does a little bit more productivity under the gun. So when we went to record this past couple of times, to my dismay, we didn't have the lyrics finished until the day of. So they're excellent. I can't deny his prowess of the spoken and written word, but it's a little too close for comfort for my taste.
Yeah. I also really appreciate his lyrics as well. I think he strikes a really good balance between the literal and the metaphorical. Like there's some bands who their lyrics are very literal, especially a lot of punk bands who talk about socio-political stuff. They'll just straight up say, the government's corrupt and they're going to kill us all and stuff. And it's very straightforward. And then there's some bands where it's like, how many drugs was this guy on when he wrote this?
What are they talking about?
But Dylan has abstract lyrics that do have a few different concrete meanings you could pull from them. I think I really appreciate his ability to do that.
Same.
I guess, speaking of which, what does his lyrics normally touch on? Is it more like metaphysical, maybe some sort of personal things that he kind of went through?
I would say kind of Turner's example with the socio-political, the EP we're working on, and it's called Better Angels. And it's kind of like a call to arms to have just that. It's not as cliche as being the change you want to see, but there'll be tracks on the record that touch on things like gentrification or, the media narrative. From exposing a self-serving side of that. So it's aware of current events, but it's kind of tied up with a nice flowery bow. So open to some interpretations.
Yeah, because again, there's some songs I think Rose-Colored Glasses is perhaps the most literal. On the surface, it's very clearly about nuclear war, as you can tell from the cover art. But there's also some other meanings to it as well, and the song Fever Dreams touches a little bit on religious concepts, and he could explain it better than me, but he talked about how it's sort of like a indictment of people who use their religion or spirituality as a way to like make them feel better about themselves, even though they're kind of not being so kind to the people in their life, is more or less what he said that was about. Time and interest, that's probably the one that's kind of mostly about the media wasting our time and interest. So it's kind of, it reminds me a lot of Rise Against lyrics to some extent, in that it is socio-political, but not always very blunt, like approaches it in a more poetic way.
Well, so you were reading my mind too, because I did want to ask about those two songs. So actually, thanks for the explanation there too. So I guess let's see, talk about the lyrics. So you guys mentioned about the various lineup changes that you have gone through. So I guess would you say that's been your biggest challenge, or I guess what other challenges have you guys faced being musicians?
Being a musician, there is always a challenge. I would say in our like formative years, that was the biggest obstacle. We didn't let it stop us. We continued to write, just playing without a drummer at times, or playing without a bassist, or I think it was difficult to try and lock in an individual that could meet that like triangle I was talking about, like proficiency, professionalism, and vision. So there were frustrations when you'd try and bring someone in, they could play and they got it, but they'd show up hungover. Or you got someone who was really eager to be there and loved what you're doing, but they couldn't quite keep up on a performance base. So it's always, stressful is not the right word, but a little awkward trying to have those tough conversations of like trying to get people together for a team you want to create artwork with, but also can do business with. You can trust that they're not just trying to better themselves by using you and your band. But now that the band has been formed, I think kind of everyone just having their own lives. It's very hard to get 5 adults together at the same time regularly to really put in the time to create.
And we kind of, already touched on some ways we overcome that, is that we're pretty good at practicing and making forward progress even without all 5 of us present. We've been able to practice at least consistently on Saturday nights almost all the time. Does the limit time to go out and party, but like honestly, I like playing music more. My partying is just when we go out to shows and have finished our sets, that's when I go out and party. That's enough for me. I'm a pretty introverted person.
Yeah, but aside from that stuff, I guess finances would be the other thing. So if we all got our own bills to pay and mouths to feed, so trying to put any extra income into the band, because it doesn't pay for itself at this point. So that would be a big hurdle, I would say. And other than that, I feel that we do have some good product, but exposing it to the correct audience, or like people it will resonate with, it's very hard to find those individuals. So kind of a spray and pray approach. But
yeah, most people, like when we show them our music, react positively to it. Like they recognize the sort of thinking, creativity, like they can, but they don't really like it. They appreciate it, but don't necessarily like it, which when you play any sort of music with like, screamed vocals and distorted guitars, it has sound many people perceive as being harsh. And so like they can appreciate the artistry behind it, but it's not going to be something they're putting on their playlist when they go to work out at the gym or something. So
yeah, I can see why there too. Actually, do you guys sell your own merch at shows too? I guess, how do you interact with the fans?
Yeah, fans, if we're not playing, we're in the crowd trying to hype people up for the other bands, show the other band some love, and then the merch table. My fiance is a strong member of the band in that regard. She holds down the fort. She's much more of a salesperson than any of us. We're all a little more introverted. So she's wheeling and dealing like a pro and getting to know everybody and their story. So they have a good time on our merch table. And just if they come up after our set and talk to us like, hey, I liked your gig, it's instead of shrugging them off, it's like getting to know them, being like, oh, thanks so much. Like ask them a question about it. Like, what was your favorite song, or what are you listening to now? Because when you go out and you're in that setting, like everyone's kind of there for the same reason. They want like a good time and listen to some heavier music. So, yeah.
You must have done a hell of a sales pitch in order to hook you in, that's for sure, too. So, a good catch nonetheless there, mate. Good job. So, for the next question right here, first off, what's your opinion of AI? Because I know, Turner, you mentioned about some sort of AI mastering, too. And even though it seems like a joke that, hey, it's putting people out of business, it seems like that's what's going to legitimately do. So I guess, what's your opinion of AI these days?
I can go first.
Mine. I think it's interesting. I think there's some pretty remarkable things. I'm excited to see what happens. I wouldn't consider myself fearful, although conversationally, the term Skynet comes up pretty frequently. I look at it like I look at any tool, like a hammer, for instance. You can build a house or you can cave in your neighbor's head. It's really up to the users what they would like to do with it. And if that's to outsource employment to it, there are perspectives you can take on that. It can be, oh no, our jobs, or it's like, oh, thank God the robots take care of the trash now because that job sucked. Mm-hmm. Everything is interconnected, so it's hard to understand how it will affect the economy and the transactions, and it gets even more convoluted when there are people with vested interests involved. So I am fearful because I just feel that a lot of people in power lack a moral compass, or are in it to kind of better themselves and people they know rather than the whole being the rest of us. So I'm just interested to watch it unfold. I'm not a big fan. I'm not a supporter of it, but it hasn't wronged me in any way. I'm sure there'll be some pretty powerful changes for good that it will be able to do. But it all comes down to how you use that tool.
And I guess I just accept it as an inevitability. Whether it will be a good thing or a bad thing, it remains to be seen. From like the economic perspective, I think we're gonna have to change our economy because like there'll be more people and like not enough work to do. And our current system is you have to do work to make money. But what happens when AI is doing a lot of that work? And we want to get political. I think Andrew Yang was onto something with providing everyone with some degree of universal income, because in the future, like there might not be enough work for people to earn a full income. So like just taking some of the profits that are generated from AI and other technology and distributing it throughout the population is probably the only solution to, keep the economy running. But as Adam said, trusting those in power to, do things like that is my concerns there. And I guess another thought about it is like relation to art, because like we were literally when we were recording with Jay, we played around with an AI songwriter, and like that would literally type in, write a song about this, that, or the other in this style, and it does it. And the music is fine, but it's all based on stuff that people have written before. Like the AI basically analyzes all the music it has access to and uses that to kind of write similar things. And so I don't think it will ever like completely put artists out of business, because the stuff it writes, both musically and visual art too, like looks fine on the surface, but it's not super creative or original, in my own opinion. We'll see what happens as it gets more advanced, but for the time being, I think there's still plenty of room for human artists to do our thing.
I guess, did you guys use AI for your artwork, or who put it together?
We like to enlist local artists. But we do have one T-shirt with an AI generated picture. But that's one of maybe just under a dozen images. Tried it. I don't think we'll go back to it because, having the hindsight, it does seem a little more soulless than art that we have commissioned local people to put together.
Yeah, good to support your local community. Plus, even though both of us have moderated opinions about AI, there's plenty of people in the artistic community who just like straight up hate it. And if they ever found out you used AI to make artwork, be like, I never listen to this band again. And I see their perspective, so it might be good to respect that.
I guess so. Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens here too. So tread carefully. That's what I'll say.
Right.
All right. For the last one right here, in terms of social media too, first off, I guess, what social media are you guys on first off?
Well, we all wear many hats in the band. There's just the 5 of us, so we actually divvy up the literal social media to a couple members. So I'm like the Facebook guy and the X guy, and Turner is our TikTok guy.
I don't like TikTok, but I do it anyway. We'll see how much longer I'm sure it'll still be a thing. They'll just sell it to an American company and it'll keep on doing its thing, I think, even though everyone's freaking out about it being gone. I don't think it'll go away completely.
Yeah, I think realistically, when we have some weight to throw around, we can be more picky choosy, but exposure kind of being the goal. We're kind of submitting to certain trends to kind of reach out to people. But although we may not be the biggest fans of things like Facebook or TikTok, you meet a lot of great people on there that love to hear music or hear your thoughts on it. And we love to talk to them, support other bands, check out playlists they're throwing together we may or may not be on. Other than that, we're on there, but we're not like crying for attention. You can reach out to us and we'll talk with you, but we're not like, hey, don't forget about us. So a little more mystery to the band than maybe your typical.
Yeah, that's a good like networking tool too. You can see other bands like when they're doing shows, and that's probably more like we don't post a ton. We'll periodically post content, but not a ton. We think we do more use it as a network. Social media in general is more of a networking tool than a advertising platform, in part because we're still a young band and our material we can share is somewhat limited. Aside from new show announcements, we'll always put that on everything.
Yeah, I can see why. And I think it's going to become Amp Talk. Instead of TikTok, it's going to be Amp Talk at some point too. And it gets bought up by an American company. Right.
Yeah.
But actually, you guys part of the Facebook group Band Together?
Yes.
I guess when did you join? And I guess what sort of advice would you give to musicians, both on Band Together and I guess other musicians in general?
I didn't really start getting into the Facebook thing till maybe a little over like a year and a half ago. So if we subscribed with Band Together, it would have been within that time frame. I believe I hit them and Vox and Sticks and then a bunch of local groups early on. And that kind of really helped us meet a lot of other people trying to do the same thing. As far as advice for people with Band Together or musicians, I'd consider them in the same group. I don't think I'd give different advice to Band Together members than I would any other musician. But I think being deliberate, know what you want out of it. What are you trying to do with music? Where are you trying to take it? And then be willing to put in the time. Music, similar like learning an instrument, you get out what you put in. And it may seem like you're like banging your head against the wall, but I guarantee you, if you meet up once a week for 2 years in that garage, you're going to be a lot better on the other side, whether you notice it or not. So it's really hunkering down, keeping your nose to the grindstone, and trying not to lose sight of why you started. Because as you mentioned before, obstacles, there are a lot of setbacks that it almost feels like the whole thing explodes and falls through your hands. So unless you're willing to try and catch the pieces and glue it back together, you might not be successful. More closer to home for not even just heavy music, but people is like, don't be afraid to rhyme for the empty walls. Don't be afraid to share your music with people, even if you don't think they'd like it. You never truly know what anyone will be into. And just be kind. If you're a gentleman and you treat people well, you work with them and you do your best to honor your word and help them out, then before you know it, you kind of have some sister bands, and that grows into a bit of a local family and a scene. So it's nice to watch other people get better, watch them kind of succeed and celebrate in their victories, but also have people to lean on, whether it's advice on who you should go to for artwork, or putting a show together. So kind of the same advice as real life is, be kind. If it's worth doing, it's worth doing well, and try not to lose sight of why you're doing what you're doing.
Sorry, I thought Turner was going to say something right there.
Oh.
So.
If you'd like to add.
What was the question again?
It was just, I guess, what sort of advice would you give to musicians, both on band together and, I guess, other musicians in general?
I think probably, I mean, it really depends on like what stage of musical development they're in. Like what I tell students who are kind of just learning at first is to practice consistently, find music that you enjoy listening to and enjoy playing, kind of make it a fun thing. Try to play with other people, like as soon as you're really able to. There's a lot of people who kind of just, play in their bedroom by themselves, and there's some who put stuff up on YouTube and can actually have a musical career that way. Like that's a legitimate path. I personally enjoy playing music with others more, so I encourage others to do that. Maybe I'm just projecting my own desires, but I'd never want to be a solo artist. I think it's more fun with other people. And that kind of touches on what Adam was saying, is when you start working with other people in a band and with other bands, just be nice and be professional. Like even if it's not a job yet and you're not making income off it, if you ever want to, you have to treat it like one, and be there when you say you're going to be there, and treat everyone else respectfully. The audience is paying to come see your show, so don't get super wasted before it and suck and screw them out of their money. Treat it professionally. And it sounds kind of weird being like a punk band, but you can balance the two, being kind of professional and following decorum and social norms, while also protesting certain social norms that aren't so great.
Yeah, it sounds good. As soon as you said don't show up to the set hungover, I was thinking Adam.
Oh no, I'm always on my best behavior.
Yeah, we've never had a live show that has face planted. I know.
Not yet.
Not
wood. Lots of wood here to talk. Yeah.
Okay. That's good. But you're all good there too. So make sure you guys keep up the good work there too. And thanks for sharing your advice. All right. So Turner and Adam, we briefed through the questions here pretty good. We're now down to the fun ones. Ready to roll?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So start right here. So I guess Turner, what would you say is your favorite food?
My favorite food, probably various different Indian dishes. I'd say probably the chicken tikka masala, my favorite one, but any sort of, rice, meats, chicken, lamb, shrimp, and various spicy sauces on it. And Indian cuisine would probably be my favorite.
I'm surprised about Indian cuisines. They're starting to make a nice little move right now in the States, to be honest, too.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess, Adam?
Yeah, I'm all about variety. I'm trying to not eat the thing I just ate. But if there was a food I came back to and I'm always amazed at why I'm not eating it every day, it'd probably be sushi. Specifically like maki rolls. I love that raw fish protein, but the play they have with textures, be it the snap of a cucumber, the squish of an avocado, all the permutations they can put together and all the flavor profiles. It's such good comfort food.
Yeah, I love it too. And there's a lot of good places around here. As Maine's always been at a seafood culture, and so as Japan, what with being an island. So, there's a lot of room for some cross-cultural mixing of seafood cuisine here, and the results are very delicious.
Yeah. Local seafood is excellent. When it comes just from a few miles away, it makes a big difference.
An Americanized sushi. That's what I want to call it too. So,
Yeah.
I'm surprised about sushi too, because I don't know. For me, it looks kind of a little strange too. Was it kind of a little strange when you first took a bite into it?
Yeah. I guess arguably compared to other things I'd eaten at that point. But I just want to eat the world, really. So I was more stoked than anything. I was like, oh, I've heard so much about it. I've never tried it. I'm excited. But you get that security blanket around it of rice. Everybody knows what rice is, so it's not too scary to dip your toes in. But at first it was definitely a little weird. But now I cannot get enough.
I'll say if you're gonna eat anything else, eat the rich, because they end up talking about those ones.
That's the plan. We're working on it.
Once they take away all the rest of our food, no more sushi for you plebeians.
Have you thought about turning into a carnivore there, Turner?
What's that?
Have you thought about turning into a carnivore, Turner?
Carnivore.
Yeah. Be like you. Or actually, that would be a cannibal in this case, because then he'd be eating the extra rich. So, yeah.
Cannibal corpse, man.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, he's Alex Webster now. All right, I can see. All right. So, here, Adam, for this question right here, what would you consider as your favorite movie?
Ooh, my favorite movie. I think one, well, I'll give you my favorite and then the honorable mention. I think my favorite would be The Waterboy with Adam Sandler. All the characters are great, very quotable, just a nice little sport, lighthearted movie. Honorable mention, though, ever since I was a kid, it was Nightmare Before Christmas. I'm a sucker for musicals, so that one had a little bit of the dark side to it that I didn't know I was into yet. But if I had to pick, it'd be The Waterboy.
For me,
yeah.
Please say The Thing, I think it was 1984 version, John Carpenter. I like sci-fi horror in general. Currently playing the Dead Space remake, very heavily influenced by The Thing. It's probably my favorite video game, and a nostalgia trip there. But yeah, Aliens, another good one. I'm kind of obsessed with sci-fi horror. So total stereotype here. Death metal, sci-fi horror, right? But The Thing is definitely, I think, is the best movie from that genre, in my own opinion.
I would say the classes are just disguised at this point in tier two. So, I mean, he's pretty much just lists like horror movies, Cannibal Corpse, all the stuff there too. He's wearing some sort of disguise, so that's the thing too. So
yeah.
Actually, how scary is Dead Space 2? Because I actually never played it before.
I would say it's very tense. Like, I wouldn't necessarily say it's super scary. It's very gory and gross, although that stuff doesn't bother me too much. Some other people it might bother them, but kind of what I think about is just a like a lot of survival horror games, it's fairly challenging. Like there's no cannon fodder. Every enemy you encounter can and will kill you until you've tried to beat it a few times. So it's definitely gets your heart racing, and you have to be able to like improvise on the spot, like run out of ammo and the alien monster is still not dead yet. So you're going to have to, grab the explosive red barrel and throw it at them instead or something. It's a lot of improvisation in the games. It kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat. So I'd say it's very intense, but in my own opinion, not too scary. A little bit scary. But.
Yeah, you get the jumps. They'll build in spots that you have to pass through, and a window will bust and something will come through. Definitely startle you.
A good thing it's not a face hugger like from the Alien series. So. Yeah. So, Turner, for this next one here, what would you say is your favorite alcoholic drink and non-alcoholic drink?
Favorite alcoholic drink? Dark and Stormy. It's a ginger beer and rum and lime juice. That'd be my favorite alcoholic beverage. Non-alcoholic, once again playing in stereotypes, is Moxie, Maine's official soda. I don't know if you ever had it. I've heard it's not widely available outside of New England.
Doesn't ring a bell. Doesn't mean we don't have it, but I guess can you just describe it real quick?
So it's kind of like root beer, but has a bit more of a bitter flavor.
Bright
Gentian root is the main flavoring ingredient. So it is technically a type of root beer, but it's a little more bitter and less sweet than your average root beers.
I don't know. I was a really good fan of root beer way back in the day. Doesn't mean my taste buds have changed, but I'm not too sure. But nonetheless, Adam.
Alcoholic, I'd have to go with spicy margarita. Love my sweet, my sour, and some heat. And then non-alcoholic, I got that sweet tooth, so I think I'd have to also go with soda. I'm a big fan of raspberry ginger ale.
Raspberry ginger ale. Actually, is it the Canadian dry one?
Yeah. Nope. Sorry, it's Schweppes.
Schweppes.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to remember because I think we did it at both. I think it was the Canadian dry and then the Schweppes was the other one too. So yeah. Okay. That's what you're saying. And Adam, for the last one right here, I guess. So, what would you consider is currently your favorite song or a song you've been listening to a good bit recently?
Favorite song. Well, I buy myself some time. The song I've been listening to, because I'm a tool, is our own songs. I'm trying to do some notes on mixing with Jay, so I kind of have been listening to the 2 tracks we just recorded on repeat. As for my favorite song, I'm sure it changes on the day, but if I had to give you one, it might be Words in the Water by a band called Thrice.
I've heard of Thrice, but I don't think I really dug into their music too much, to be honest, too. So I guess, are they still around these days?
They still play. A lot of people argue they've gotten into their dad rock phase, which I can see. They started out with like the heavy punk, a little on the prog side, and then they've kind of grown through like a more generic rock and grunge sound. But their newer material, they have some echoes of kind of all their I don't want to say influences, but iterations of themselves. I'm a big fan. I guess an issue some people have is the lyrics are like not profound, like mind blowing, but kind of just like talking about how big the expanse of like what you can imagine, and just kind of, I appreciate it. It helps make your own problems seem a lot smaller than they feel. Other people, it can come off as preachy, but depends on what you're into. I'd check them out. If you like heavier music, I definitely recommend some Thrice.
Yeah. I'll hold you up to it too. So yeah, I'll check them out. All right, and Turner.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with what I've been listening to recently. Probably my favorite. I can't really pick a favorite song, but bands and albums, I can kind of narrow it down a bit. So there's this band, a Wilhelm Scream. They're like a melodic hardcore band from New Bedford, Massachusetts, and they're one of those bands I'd like heard the name because they're kind of a big name contemporary hardcore scene, but I'd never heard them until I saw them play at the same venue in Portland we recently did the emo night at, and it was like jaw-droppingly good. Like they have really technical parts, lots of complex vocal harmonies that they did live. Like I assume this was just stuff they did in the studio to make it sound cooler, but like everything that's on their records they performed like flawlessly live, and so like definitely one of my favorite bands at this point. Of all time, I can say a favorite album would be The Sound of Perseverance by Death, arguably the original death metal band. It was the vocalist and guitarist Chuck Schuldiner, who back when I was more into guitar was my favorite guitarist, died of like brain cancer, I think in early 2000. So he was writing this album like when he knew his days were numbered, and that's kind of what the concept of the album is about. And it's, indescribably good in my opinion. It's very progressive too, which is interesting because a lot of their older albums were more like old school death metal, again with them being one of, if not the first death metal bands. But their last album, The Sound of Perseverance, still has that like death metal edge to it, but a lot of really progressive and melodic elements too. And it's, if I had to pick a favorite album, it would be that one.
That's an excellent choice. Yeah, and may rest in peace, first off. Mm-hmm. And I didn't actually know that was the last album too. And The Sound of Perseverance, that's the one that looks like it's mounted with like the big mouth.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't think too. But you guys also stay local too. Some people will go overseas, like pick maybe some sort of European group, for instance, or somewhere maybe on the other side of the states, for instance. So yeah, you guys stay true to your roots too. So that's all good. All right. So Turner and Adam, we breezed through all the questions right here. We are down to one more question. Before we jump into it, did you guys have any questions for me or any final words you want to say before we jump into it?
I think we should be good.
I would like to know what your favorite song is.
It changed a little bit here too. And it used to be Between the Buried and Me's Answer the Sky. I mean, I always loved that album, Colors. So it's among one of my favorite albums, but it recently changed. And actually, it was another McGrip show that I was putting together. It was the band, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but Fans Capt, if you know, FANSKAPT. Not sure if it's German or anything too, but it was more like a punk metal, and like the song was Reset and Delete. So that one was catchy as hell there too. So I'd say that one.
Nice.
Other than that, we'll pick Rose-Colored Glasses from Black Box Recovery. A close second. There we go. A close second. So,
thank you very much.
No worries. You're all good. I guess Turner, or do you guys have any other ones?
Other questions? Do you play in any bands at the moment?
Actually, I formed a group of my own. Well, I should really call it like an in-house metal project because I'm not really doing any touring, but I'm collaborating with other musicians in our indie community. I've done 2 with Storm Kingdom and 2 with Waiting at the Bridge. So got those put out right now, so I'm actually kind of happy about that. It's actually my first music I've done, and actually ones I've done vocals on too. So I do it under the name Demiurge. So
that's a cool name.
Yeah.
I would say, unfortunately, it has been taken by like some other ones. I'm not too sure what genre they're all in. I think this is a name that's been sticking with me. Let's keep it and roll with it.
It's an interesting concept. Dylan was trying to explain it to me. He's kind of a philosopher of sorts. So he's very interested in philosophical, spiritual, religious concepts. And I understand that is an important one in many spiritual traditions, but I admittedly don't know exactly what it means.
It's basically a creator of the universe, in a manner of speaking. They might change it up a little bit here too, but that's kind of the way I use it too. You're basically the creator of your universe. So basically, it works on the music. So just two birds, one stone when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. And then following that up, if you're doing your own music thing, I'm intrigued in how you got into interviewing bands. What was the impetus behind, like, I'm going to get a setup and I'm going to figure out what these people are about?
Well, let's see. It started actually, I think, way back in 2021. And I've been meaning to do podcasting for a while. And actually, when I finally started, it was just like drummers, for instance. So I did have one drummer who is actually now going and touring and doing all this stuff with some country bands out of Nashville. And he was the first interview. Then I just started reaching out to other drummers in our drumming community and interviewing them. And then it was actually Vox and Sticks. I got Vox and Sticks. And they told me about a band together. I found a bunch of indie artists and thinking like, more of a shot. We'll see where it goes. But there were some, I guess, before that who were in like bands, for instance, because there were like a couple of big blues guys that I had interviewed before. So, sorry, a little bit of cough there. So, yeah. I guess it was just good to branch out, to be honest, too, because it's all music matters in that, too. So it's meant to be like all of different genres and I guess all sorts of people, for instance, too. They were like the whole thing with like interviewing bands, for instance, too. That was just kind of an addition, to be honest. So that happened quite by accident.
Some of the best things do. That's cool.
Yep. A lot of things. The good things in life happen quite by accident. So, yeah. So, there's the story.
Very nice.
All right. I was going to wait for that plane to pass on over.
I know. Sorry about that.
Actually, that's the third one that's happened here, too. But I guess you guys close to the airport.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I guess, did you guys have any other ones, or okay to jump into the last question?
I think we're ready for the last question.
Okay. So for the last question, you might have harped on this a little bit here, too, but here's how it goes. Given what COVID has done, obviously it seems like you guys were pretty blessed. Also, probably a good thing being introverted, too, so I can see why. But I guess for those musicians who have been impacted by COVID or whatever else in their lives, too, what's their message of hope would you give to musicians and people out there as we try to move forward in the post-COVID world?
I guess one thing that I've always thought that, like, I always appreciated about music and other art forms is that, unlike a lot of the things people do, it's not a means to an end. It's kind of the end in and of itself, like just enjoying whatever art you like. It's, who is this? I think it's Nietzsche. It was like, without music, life would be a mistake. And I kind of agree with him. Like, we have to do a lot of shitty stuff we don't want to do, have to do a lot of work that is merely a means to some sort of end. But music and art I see as the end in and of itself. And like, I don't pretend to know what the meaning of life is, but enjoying art is definitely part of it. So regardless of how hard it gets, it's like, without it, I think life loses a lot of its meaning, and it's worth doing regardless of how difficult it can be.
Yeah. To kind of run with that idea, but rein it in instead of the meaning of life, more for the individuals is keep going. It may seem like you're not getting anywhere and nothing's happening, but if you stick with it, and it only takes one chance and one opportunity to meet the right person. And if you're not out there, I know it might be difficult if you're not exactly like proud or you're nervous what people will think of it, because music you create or artwork, it's very personal. And sometimes it's difficult to share that for, fear of people telling you it sucks or you're bad. You'd much rather wonder than to be shot down. But I can tell you is there are always going to be people that shoot you down. I don't know if it's anonymity of the internet or just if they're having a bad day. But for hope, I would say if you stick with it, good things will happen. It might not be exactly what you think or how you want it, but if you create art and you get out there and share it, you're going to have a great time.
Spoken like a bunch of true prodigies. So, all right. Sounds all good. And thank you guys so much for sharing that advice right there, too. So, all right. So Turner and Adam, we've reached the end of my podcast right here, and we've just a little bit shy of an hour and 30 minutes here, too. But I guess you guys got any final words, any shout-outs you want to give before we close?
I would like to shout out to all the local groups. I say I'm not on social media a lot, but Band Together is great. Vix, Vox and Sticks. Another guy, two guys, EWL, saying Even Without Life. They're great. The reason I love them is they're a real conduit for indie artists. They're always positive. They're always even getting us creators together. They might not be pulling super fans for you, but they do an excellent job at making you feel included. Everyone. It's not like they're burning bridges by any means. So I'd like to let them know how much I appreciate them, because they don't typically have a platform to do so. And you.
I guess it's a good thing I don't have an OnlyFans page then, I guess. So.
I guess one shout out for me would be people who keep music venues going, especially it's not always super easy or profitable business, but most of them do it for, love of music, and without them, like, we couldn't do shows. I mean, yes, we could, but it'd be hard to, attract an audience to it. And so really appreciate everyone who puts their time into making spaces where live music can be performed and appreciated.
That's good. What? No shout out to me? Come on, at least Adam gave me one.
Of course, yeah.
I can say why that he's the spokesperson. That's a good reason why Adam's the spokesperson.
Yes, so. We do definitely appreciate you. We were tickled pink when you showed some interest and were willing to give us more than just the time of day. So I can't thank you enough for having us on here and taking the time to not only figure out what Black Box Recovery is about, but a little bit about us. So hopefully we can keep in touch and you can meet the other guys sometime.
Hopefully one day. So, and hey, it was 50-50. So it was a good thing you responded. So it's all good.
Yeah.
So, and I guess just for the audience's sake, can you just list the social media and streaming platforms you're all on so they can check you guys out?
Yeah. We're on the usual suspects, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, and then where you can find our music, I believe we go through CD Baby for distribution. So any of their platforms, which would be Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music,
Amazon, pretty much all of them.
The major streaming, you'll be able to find us.
Just your kids kind of the same way too. So, all right, it's all good. All right. So everyone, my guests today were Turner and Adam, part of the group Black Box Recovery. They're hailing from up north of Portland, Maine, not Oregon. Make sure we get that one right. So you guys go check them out on the socials. Again, this is Black Box Recovery. So make sure you go check them out on the socials. Go hit up on the streaming platforms. Let's go help some brothers out right there too. So Turner, Adam, I want to thank you again so much again for coming on. You all stay safe. Rock on.
Thank you.
Stay tuned, y'all.
Have a good one.